Scott here again on Flip That Script, and I wanted to talk to you about grief again, but this time in the context of actually making the decision to go no contact. So I'm going to talk about grief again in that context. Previously, it was in the context of radical acceptance and learning how little, if at all, that toxic and abusive bullying family members change, even if and when and after you express your concerns, whether generally or specifically. Sometimes people even decide to go no contact and decide they'll figure it out. I don't judge which way people decide to go that are in this situation and how much or little they decide to express their grievances, because when you do, it's just really your own closure to have at least had the opportunity to communicate, even if it's one last time and you've expressed these grievances before. So along with grieving, and in conjunction with that, we also should be experiencing healing and growing as a person, as an individual. To me, one of the important components of grieving is very hard work. And this is kind of a nebulous or ambiguous kind of grieving and kind of complicated in its own way, because you're grieving the loss of a relationship that you've kind of always been told is a relationship that lasts throughout life until one or the other of you, or in this case, if it's more than one toxic family member you're severing ties with, until at least one of you in the relationship is no longer living and has passed away. To me, especially in this kind of I guess we could call it an intentional loss for our own well-being, even though it may or may not be a component in other loss, although it's common to feel anger. In grieving, the choice, which has almost been forced upon you, to go no contact with toxic and abusive family members, I would say that the real healing begins when you begin to acknowledge and experience your anger. And I could pretty much tell you that, in my opinion, if you don't end up feeling anger, then it must be kind of buried deep within you. That can also be understandable because abusive family members discourage you from being authentic and being real. And they also judge other people's negative emotions. But it's important, in my opinion, and also in my experience, that you have to find and connect with that anger. Because toxic relationships, especially with family, who we come to expect to have our back, to be there for us, to be encouraging, kind, loving, supportive, and for it to be so far removed from those ideals, and often for decades, a lifetime, it would be normal for that to be pretty infuriating if you think about it. I mean, it's just been a one-sided relationship with this family member or with these family members where there's no room for you and where they feel perfectly entitled and justified to treat you and speak to you like you're a second or third class citizen. So getting angry, I think, is essential to healing after severing ties with one or more toxic family members. Grieving is hard work, and anger can and should be a normal part of this grieving process, especially because of the chronic and grave injustice and relationship crime that you've been exposed to. Relationships where your thoughts and feelings, your values, even if they differ, etc., etc., are completely dismissed and validated and considered irrelevant, and that you need to look at things the same as they do, not be proud of your accomplishments, not think you have a right to your feelings, pretty much not even have a right to stand up to injustice when it comes to how they've been treating you. So, severing ties simply creates the space for you to be able to grieve. It's kind of like grieving the loss of hope, a grieving of the things that weren't, that ideally should have been, that you know that other people, friends, people that you meet, often do have with their family members. And it's also a grieving of the really bad things that you experienced from them. But at least once you go no contact, you are going to eventually experience peace and a much better quality of life by no longer being exposed to the harmful ways that they have shown you to be, the way that they would continue to behave towards you and to speak towards you. And, of course, to view you as less than to view you as mentally ill when you're not, or quote unquote crazy, to view you as incompetent and lacking in accomplishment, even when that's not true, and to consider you not of good character when you are. In going through your grief and healing, you also should do some reading, watch other channels like this, books, articles, and kind of begin to see the ways in which the abuse has impacted you, the way you feel about yourself, the way you handle relationships. It can contribute to some kind of dysfunctional behavior in yourself. So it's important to do some inner work. And by going through this experience, even just in having stood up to toxic family members, even if you only have done that through going no contact, but even if you confronted them about your concerns and expressed them and gone no contact, you're growing as a person because you've learned to assert that you have value and that you have deserved better. The thing is, when you are someone who has been affected by toxic, abusive, most likely cluster B family members, you are going to be growing and evolving and more reaching your potential as a whole, or at least more whole and healed human being. And that's a gift that people have that disordered individuals just don't have. So, again, it's important that you actually grieve having had to go no contact. And I word it that way because I think in most situations it really is that you had to have done this in your own best interest, not in a selfish way or for selfish reasons, but just to be able to have the kind of well-being that you wish you could have still maintained while maintaining relationships with them. But unfortunately, in a lot of these cases, especially those who are disordered and high up on the spectrum, you being able to maintain and protect your peace and to have well-being and having a relationship with them is unfortunately they are unfortunately mutually exclusive things. But when you get to the other side of your grieving, you will find peace, you will find acceptance with more time and distance. You will find that the more time passes, And the more you've had the opportunity to grieve, the more you will come to be proud of yourself that you've made this decision and that you have been able to maintain your resolve in sticking with it.